Hello, hello, and welcome back to my corner. I am the DM as always, and today we have a very interesting one. I was watching a reaction to this video, actually. It is a speech given at the NRA meeting, conference, whatever it was. I didn't watch it personally, mostly because I just never really researched or looked up where exactly to go to see it. However, I was watching a reaction video to this, but he said something in it that I haven't watched the whole thing, but of what I have watched, I haven't found anything I disagree with from this individual. And he said a lot of things that really resonate with me and really make me just kind of stop and look and think. And the thing that made me want to make this video, you've probably seen in the title, somebody finally said something to the politicians directly. Let's get into it.
But you know, when I look at my grandchildren, I am also reminded of why I am a law-abiding, armed, patriotic American. I'm reminded of why I believe in the premise of our Second Amendment when I look at those babies. I'm reminded why our framers put it in our Constitution, that in this nation, you are not the second responder, you are the first responder. And that you have an absolute duty and a right to stand up and protect your home from any enemy, foreign or domestic.
I like what he said there. It's something that I've stood for and have tried to echo myself. I do not believe in more gun control. I do not believe we need gun reform. What I think we need is gun safety. If everyone is responsible and is taught responsibility from an early age, a lot can be avoided. But I like what he said there. It's very true.
And so, I am here today, much to the chagrin of many of the leftists back home in my state, who thought I should cower and stay home and not come here and continue to protect that right for those law-abiding citizens back home in North Carolina and for the law-abiding citizens of this nation.
Standing ovations.
Because here it is. Here it is. Everybody says, what do we do? What do we do? How do we stop this? What do we do? The answer is not simple, but there is a simple starting point. And here it is. Secure our schools. Stop waffling and wavering.
And that's an important point right there. Securing our schools. Now, obviously, Robb Elementary School had security, and it did nothing. They were a part of the police force, and they did absolutely nothing. It has also come to my attention that I knew that the killer got in through a back door, but I wasn't entirely sure how. But it has come to my attention that he got in because a school teacher had propped it open and had left it open. Now, I don't know the specifics of why she left it open or whether or not she was outside or inside at the time of the shooter's arrival or anything like that. I just know that the back door was propped open and it was done so by a teacher. That is all I know. However, one argument that is common on the Republican side right now is only having a single entrance. Now, I've discussed and yelled about why that makes absolutely no sense. Being, what if there's a fire or an earthquake, or if the shooter just barricades the door? There's a ton of reasons why you don't want only a single entrance / exit into and out of a building, especially a elementary school of all places. But yeah, that's what we need to do. We need to secure our schools. I am all for having armed teachers or an armed officer or something on campus at all times if they're actually going to do something. If they're going to just do what the Robb Elementary School police officers did and fucking let the dude just run in and do absolutely nothing to stop him, then no, they don't need to be in our schools and they can fuck right off. End of story. But if they're actually going to fucking step up and do their fucking job, then yeah, put them in the schools. Secure our schools. Our children are our future.
And acting confused that you don't understand. Stop waffling and wavering and acting confused that you don't understand what the problem is. You have defunded the police, derided the police, and you have left our schools as soft targets. And you continue.
Yeah, I think I might have jumped forward.
It's not simple, but there is a simple starting point, and here it is. Secure our schools. Stop waffling and wavering and acting confused that you don't understand what the problem is. You have defunded the police, derided the police.
Now, as an argument against him about the defunding the police, yes, there are places, even in Texas, that have had the police defunded. However, this was not widespread, and the police that responded to the incident at Robb Elementary were not defunded. They weren't. Austin was, but this didn't take place in Austin. Just as a point against him. I don't really disagree necessarily with anything he says. What he says, even with that in mind, is still true. You cannot sit there and defund the police and remove resources from them and then expect those exact same defunded police to be able to respond on time with everything they need. You've defunded them. You've stripped them of valuable resources. And then you're expecting them to perform the exact same job with fewer resources. In places where the police weren't defunded, this argument doesn't exist because the police weren't defunded. But this exists in every place where police were defunded, and there were a number of places where it was defunded. So this is a very important talking point. For those that want the police defunded, this is what would happen. It would actually be worse. Imagine if the Robb Elementary School police officers that responded were defunded. I mean, it already took them nearly 2 hours to do anything. Can you imagine what would have happened if they had like half the resources? Now, I'm not defending them in any way. It took fucking 2 hours before they even tried to do anything. They let those children die. They let those teachers die. The blood is on the killer's hand just as much as those policemen that refuse to do their job because they might get shot. Yeah, I'm going to keep pointing that out because that's a fucking coward's way out. Y'all are police. Your job is literally being shot at. It's literally your job. The only one that gets shot at more than police are people who are actively at war and are actively in a war zone. Those are the only individuals that get shot at more than law enforcement. Because it's part of the fucking job.
Problem is, You have defunded the police, derided the police, and you have left our schools as soft targets. And you continue to do so, and as such, we need to defend and secure our schools. We need to make as much of an investment in securing our children as we do our airports.
Yes. Yes.
We need to make as much of an investment in securing our children as we do our banks and our money.
Yes.
And hear me when I say this, leftist politicians in Washington, D.C. We need to make as much of an investment protecting our children as the American people do in protecting you. You spare no expense buying every weapon known to man.
What have I said time and time and time and time again over the past few videos? That the politicians don't fucking care about you. They only care about holding on to their power. That's all they care about. You dying, your children dying, they couldn't give a fuck less. They don't. Cruz has proven this by his callous disregard of the entire situation. Trump and him have proven this by their repeatedly trying to get people on board with this bullshit notion of a single entrance and exit into every school. It's ridiculous. And the left does it as well. Democrats want more gun control. They want to make it harder for you to get a gun, period. Which is against the Second Amendment of the Constitution. And that is not acceptable or allowable. Now, here's the thing. I've also said before, not on this channel, but throughout my life, I have stated that there is no reality in which the United States government makes, or there's no world, there's no reality where the United States government actually takes away the firearms from the American people. It's not going to happen. There are more law-abiding, gun-wielding citizens than there are people in the actual U.S. military, all of it combined. Army, Navy, Marine, Air Force, all of it. There are more law-abiding citizens than there are people in the military. End of story. That have a gun. So they will not take away our guns. What they're going to do is they're going to target ammo. They're going to target the things that let us have the guns. Or use the guns. So they're going to target ammo. They're going to target things like probably I don't really know what the technical term for it, but essentially the things that you use to make sure the gun stays lubricated, like oil and whatnot, that's specifically used for it. They're going to target things that make it so that the guns can function. Because targeting it any other way is going to get so much backlash from the American people that whoever is in power at the time will immediately lose all credibility. I mean, Biden's already pretty much done that. But in this regard, it would be guaranteed. No one's going to support an outright ban on all guns, or a ban on guns in general. It's just not going to happen. Not an outright ban, anyways. There was the machine gun ban that lasted for 10 years from 1994 to 2004, I believe. Or maybe it was 1998 to 2008. I forget exactly, but I know it only lasted. It was a provision for 10 years. However, it is no longer the law. It expired, which means machine guns are technically actually illegal, as far as I'm aware. I'm not aware of any bill that was passed after that further banned them. And this particular bill was never brought back up. So,
buying every metal detector in protecting you. You spare no.
Oh, Whoops, sorry about that.
No expense. Buying every weapon known to man. Buying every metal detector known to man. Every modern convenience, you have it at your disposal to protect you behind the walls that you live in. But you are bound and determined to leave our children defenseless. And now you are bound and determined to leave the law-abiding patriotic citizens of this nation unarmed and defenseless. Well, I'm here to tell you right now, get your pencils out, lick them, and get ready to write this down. It is not going to happen. We are not going to go off into that good night without standing up for our rights. It's time for the law-abiding American patriot in this nation to stand up and say, hell no, we will not go, and you will not take them, and we will continue to stand strong for what we know is right. We will protect ourselves. We will protect our children. And we will protect the freedoms that God has given us and that has been enshrined in our Constitution. We will not lay down. You hear me when I say this. Hear me when I say this, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and any other leftist, communist, Marxists out there. What I need for you to do is do this. I need for you to take these two fingers, stick them in your ears, and clean the stuff out of them. And hear us all as we say in unison, shall not be infringed, will not be infringed. We will not allow you to strip us of our rights so that you can bring us to our knees. Because we know what your machinations are. You see, we've seen this movie before. We've seen it. We saw it in a place called Russia. We saw it in a place called Germany. We saw it in a place called China. We saw it in a place called Cambodia and Vietnam. And we saw it most recently in a place called Venezuela. When the people are disarmed and the government have all the guns and all the power, they always become despotic. Well, not in this nation. You will not tap dance on the graves of these children to disarm the people of this nation. In fact, if you put as much energy into doing that as you do with that political tap dance, into securing these schools and shoring them up and stop making excuses, Mike could make a dent on this. So guys, here's what I'm going to leave with you today. Don't be afraid. When the newspaper asked me before I left home, was I coming to the NRA convention? My answer was yes. And the reason why I was going was to defend the rights of law-abiding citizens in my state and across this nation. Because, guys, it's time for us to stand up and push back. The lies that have been told and continue to be told are not only threatening to strip our rights away from us, they are literally causing life to be lost on the streets. See, down in Uvalde, Beto O'Rourke didn't care about those children. He was willing to spit in their faces for political purposes. The news media stands silent. When children are killed in Chicago at genocidal rates, they stand silent. But as soon as they take a chance, as soon as they see a chance, take a shot at their political enemies.
We saw this down in Texas, actually, and one in California. Immediately following the Uvalde school shooting, the very next day, a student was arrested for not only shooting his own grandmother, but going to a school with the intent to shoot up the school. The following 2 days, they found two more individuals in another part of Texas that had photos that were being posted up, blatantly showing terroristic threats towards that school. There was another one in Texas. I forget the exact specifics of it, but it involved four individuals, four students. Like 2 days, within 2 days. And then you have the one in California, which is the worst one, with a gun and a loaded magazine found in a fucking desk of a second grader. It's insane. But the media is not talking about any of them. The media is not saying shit. Not saying shit. And then, like he says, what about all the ones that die in Chicago or Detroit? Or what about all the youths that we lose to gangs and gang violence? Why aren't we talking about any of that? I remember back when I was a kid, gangs were all over the news. They were everywhere. There were documentaries after documentaries on TV that I watched about gangs and the war on gangs and the war on gang violence and the war on this, the war on that, because Americans are obsessed with war and fighting and being at conflict with each other and just never having a moment of peace because we don't fucking seem to understand the concept anymore. It's ridiculous. It's insane. And quite frankly, it's extremely entitled. Try to argue otherwise. It's extremely entitled for us to just declare war on everything and try to make ourselves be some paragon of justice when shit like this, like the Uvalde school shooting, happens, and then several more threats against schools, active threats, potential almost massacres happen, and then nothing is said, nothing is done, no one fucking seems to care. It's ridiculous. It's insulting.
They stand silent, but as soon as they take a chance, as soon as they see a chance, take a shot at their political enemies, they're Johnny on the spot and they're right there ready to do it.
Every single
one. We need to be bold. We need.
That's all mainstream media. That's all mainstream media. I know, or at least I'm pretty sure, there was a video I saw of an MSNBC individual who I praised, honestly. He called them out. He called out all politicians on it. He didn't just say the left or the right or any or Republican, Democrat or any names. He called them all out. I praised him for that. 99% of the time, right blames left blames right, and then they blame each other because the other one blamed them. And it's a vicious cycle, and it's intentional. It's intentional because all the American people just blindly vote on promises. Let me tell you something about promises. They're never kept. They're never kept. They're honored to an extent most of the time. But especially when it comes to politicians, they're never kept. Biden kept his 100-day promise and has failed to do a lot. Trump kept some of his promises, failed to keep a lot of them. Obama failed to do some of his promises, but he did some of them. The list goes on. And it's not just presidents. It's politicians. Dating back hundreds of years, more than likely. They'll promise you something, and then when they realize that they can get away with not doing it because no one says anything, they just stop doing it. It's a vicious cycle.
They're on the spot and they're right there ready to do it. Well, we need to be bold. We need to stand up because on this side, we have the solutions. And it's time for us to start pushing those solutions. And it starts with protecting our children in our schools. Time for messing around is over, folks. And the time for blaming law-abiding citizens should have never begun. It is time to put the blame where it goes, which is at the shooter's feet. And it's time to look towards those ineffective elected officials who refuse to move and do the right thing, but instead take the easy way out.
Did you hear what he said there? I want to go back and replay it because I want y'all to listen and truly hear what he is saying. Because the reason why I liked this speech by Mark Robinson is because at no point in his entire speech has he said Democrat or Republican. At no point does he blame any one specific individual like we see so many times with Trump and Ted Cruz and all these other fake kings upon their fake thrones. But not Mark Robinson. He calls it as it is. Because this happens on both sides. Both sides are in the wrong, and he's calling them out on it. He's saying, if you really care, it's time for you to put your fucking money where your mouth is and shut the fuck up. Let's once again listen to the end of his speech because it's important to really understand and dissect what he says here.
Could have never begun. It is time to put the blame where it goes, which is at the shooter's feet.
The shooter's feet. The shooter's feet. It's not because of a lack of gun control or a lack of gun reform. It's the shooter's fault. And we need to understand that the death of these individuals is a direct cause of the shooter. Now, I know I mentioned earlier that the blood is also on the hands of those cops, and I still hold those values true. But they are not to blame for the death of these kids. The death of these kids is because of this individual. Now, there can be extenuating circumstances as to why this individual took the path in life that he did. But no matter what, it was his choice to go to that school with those guns and do what he did. We all have free will. We all can make decisions on our own, especially by the time we're 18. I've seen 16-year-olds that make decisions all on their own just fine. This man had no criminal history, had no mental illness, had just turned 18. For all intents and purposes, he was a perfectly fine, law-abiding citizen. And he still went into that school and murdered 19 kids and 2 teachers. It's his fault.
And it's time to look towards those ineffective elected officials who refuse to move and do the right thing, but instead take the easy way out.
The elected officials who refuse to move and instead take the easy way out. Couldn't have said it better myself. There are individuals that y'all elect that don't care for you. I want to see you suffer because it gives them more power. And it's time, since our vote supposedly matters so much, it's time to stop voting for politicians and voting for the individuals who are meant to be in those spots. Leaders, representatives, people from our communities, people who know what's going on, who live in those situations, in those communities. People who have a connection to it, and if they don't do something, will actually have consequences fall upon them. It's time we stop paying people for being fake kings upon fake thrones and not caring about us. And it's time to stop giving those fake kings power. As always, I have been your DM. Thank you for coming to my corner, and I'll see you next time.